What's going on, guys? My name is Tyler, and this is Coach. We're part of the FF Mediators here on the FF Faceoff YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be bringing you a video about the pre-draft rookie pick values. We're going to talk through the first two rounds, kind of give you a general idea of where those picks may be valued. And so, we're going to start off here at the 101. Everybody kind of knows it at this point. It's Ashton Genty. If you're in a super flex league, you could consider Cam Ward, obviously. His value, or the picks value, I should say, currently you're looking at like two mid to late firsts if you're trying to move up, maybe an early first along with a late first. Um, I looked up some different values as far as like people on Keep Trade Cut, Dynasty Data Lab, players in the general area that are around him. Names like Puka and Mahomes came up, people you might be able to target. And this pick has been used to get top quarterbacks in the past. Coach, do you would you move it for any of those guys?
Well, I think something that everybody needs to keep in mind is you got to take it into account whether or not you want the proven commodity or you want to take a chance on a rookie. For me, I would consider any of these picks for a proven commodity if it fits a need of mine that can put me over the top if I'm a contender. Now, odds are if I'm at the 101, I'm probably not a contender. So I'm sort of looking to build my team. So it's possible you could consider two mid to late first for that pick. But if not, then I just think I'm gonna roll with Ashton Genty right here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think if you've got that competing team and you manage to get that pick out of a trade, whether that be this year or several years ago in Dynasty, you're looking good to take Genty there. If you are rebuilding, maybe trading back or getting a more stable asset and wide receiver or quarterback maybe in your near future. The next kind of grouping of picks we wanted to look at was like the 102, 103. Some people have the second running back off the board there, along with Cam Ward. I personally like Ted McMillan still there. Some people don't like his profile, but they are valued around a mid first and a late first, or a mid first and an early second. Players in that range, you're looking at CJ Stroud, Drake London, AJ Brown. Um, this is kind of where Coach was talking about, if you want the proven commodity, this is where I might actually go for it. Those three names, those are all solid names, um, that I think they're going to be good in dynasty for the next few years. So, Coach, are you buying Stroud, London, or AJ Brown for the 102 or 103?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% would. Um, Now I will say I do think like Cam Ward here, if you really need a super flex quarterback, those quarterbacks are worth a lot, especially first round. I mean, number one overall pick quarterbacks, they're worth a lot down the road. So you can get a lot of return for that investment. I think some of it comes back to what your team needs. Again, I do like London a lot. I do like London personally better than any wide receiver in this draft at the moment. So I would 100% consider making that move, especially considering London's age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's still really young at this point. I mean, the 102, 103, if you have that conviction, that he's better than any of these wide receivers in the draft class, by all means, I feel like that's one if you can make that deal, you probably should. Next bunch of picks here. We looked at the 104 through the 107, kind of another little cluster or tier of players there. Um, People have, Hampton, Travion Henderson, Tyler Warren, Igbuka, uh, players like that in the range. If you're trying to get there, trying to move up, you're probably looking at a late first to an early second. And players in that range, are some of coaches' favorites or that we've debated about. We've got Kyler there, Roma Dunze. As a Bears fan, I'm sure Coach would be salivating to have Rome on his teams. And we actually already talked about A Chan the other night with Matt, in a different live or video, one of the two. But these guys, this is where the proven commodities kind of come in. As you get later in the first, you're probably more likely to take a shot on these guys instead of the rookies, right, Coach?
Yeah, I really like A Chain here personally. I really think he has a bright future. I like him for these spots. Something I think we need to keep in mind here is with the rookies, you got to think about their landing spots. Where are they at? Who are they going to play for? What type of offense are they in? That's significant when you think about running back and wide receiver. You also got to start thinking about whether you are willing to trade back. If there's a guy you've got an eye on right here, this gets to that point to me where I might consider trading back in a rookie draft and getting a late first and an early second here. If the guy I really, really like, I think is still going to be there, at the 10, 11, 12 range.
Yeah, absolutely. That the tier based ranking, that's what that's really good at. If you've got these guys all clustered and you're like, look, I have the 104 right now, but if I could move back a little bit and he's still there, that comes with knowing your league mates too. If somebody's really high on a player that you're also high on and they might take them, you may not want to move back a little bit. But if all of it cooks up just right, you could possibly move back and net some future picks as well. And I think this next little pick stretch here, the 108 to the 110, I think both has piqued mine and coaches' interests quite a bit. The people that I had in this range were Travis Hunter, Sanders, and Luther Burden. They're all great talents. I think it's just they all have their little quirks around the draft. How much wide receiver is Travis Hunter going to play? Where does Shadur land? How far does he go in the first? And I feel like Burden is a hit or miss pick. Some people are really about him, some people don't really like him. Um, but here, kind of the current value, obviously a late first is worth a late first. But if you're trying to move up, say you have like the 112 or something, if you could throw in a mid to late second, you could probably move up a little bit. Or if you only have seconds left, two mid seconds might get you into the back end of the first round. And the most considering or convincing name that I could find for a trade prospect would be Devonte Smith. I'm going to tell you this right now. No matter how much I may be attracted to those names, if I can get Devonte Smith for the 108, I'm doing it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think one thing people need to keep in mind too is you kind of got to evaluate as the draft flows. There may be a player that's following you right here that you really, really love, so you may sit and hold. But if that guy you really are in love with, like you think is going to be, if you think Shador Sanders is your guy, like you really think he's going to fall to you, and he goes at 108, and you're picking at 109, but now you've got this Devonte Smith offer, then this may be the opportunity where you go ahead and run from that when the player that you hoped to get is not available.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into it with multiple plans, you can't go into it with one guy there and say, okay, well, if I
Hmm.
don't get this guy, what do I do? You kind of have to go in and say, all right, well, worst case scenario, if Shadur's off the board, in your case, the 108 there and you're at the 109, who's my next pick? Do I like anybody better than anybody that's currently in the league, especially in their landing spot? So we'll move on to the next little bunch of picks. This is the last two picks of the first round, the 111 and 112, as well as the first two picks of the second to the 202. This is another interesting value range for me. I had Judkins, Matthew Golden, who Matt is absolutely in love with, Trey Harris, and then Jackson Dart. That one I feel like could kind of move up a little bit depending on his landing spot and his draft capital here in a few days. But the current value, you've got like you're probably going to be looking at a mid second to a late second to move up into these picks. Um, kind of piggybacking off of earlier, just bumping down a little bit because your value is a little changed. An early second and a mid third if you're 204 or so and trying to get up to the 201. A coach loves those thirds, so he might take you up on that offer if he's got a tier there that he's willing to break down.
Well, it's never a bad idea to get an extra dart throw, right? So if I get out of 111, but I get 206 and 210, then maybe I consider it depending on my team and how I'm feeling about the board at the moment. And there comes a point where we say this all the time. We just want those dart throws. Just give me an extra pick. Every opportunity I have to pick is a chance to hit a home run. And I think this is that spot where you got to consider it. Now, if somebody falls to you like a Golden or a Harris in this spot, or a Judkins in a prime landing spot, then I'm gonna sit and pick over somebody like Tua or some trade opportunity here. But I mean, that's just something you got to take into consideration as that board moves. You got to be ever evolving as the board changes constantly and be ready to pivot at any moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, I liked your pun, whether it was intended or not, with the dart throws and talking about Jackson Dart there. Um, I did like that. Getting extra dart throws is obviously nice, but sometimes you stick with your guns there and you take those picks when you can get them, especially if your guy kind of falls.
Yep.
The next pick range is the 203 to the 206. This is a lot of, I feel like, name value players that a lot of people have been talking about, especially on like X, um, who their prospect maybe checks out. We're just unsure of their landing spot. This was Colston Loveland, Caleb Johnson, Cam Scattaboo, and Higgins out of Iowa State. Um, these guys, on Keep Trade Cut and Dynasty Data Lab, if you look those values up, they trade about 1 for 1 for like Josh Downs, Jerry Judy, stuff like players like that who are already, kind of these like they've had a semi breakout season, um, but they're still kind of in questionable offensive situations. So, Coach, would you take any of those rookies, Loveland, Johnson, Scattaboo, Higgins, over Josh Downs or Judy, or do you think that really just depends on their landing spot?
Yeah, I think it depends on landing spot, but something I can't emphasize enough here is the fact that you do not want to overvalue your second round picks. It's been proven time and time again that these third round picks sometimes can be just as valuable as a second round pick. So don't think because I have the 206, man, this pick's going to be amazing. It's going to hit when oftentimes it just doesn't. So keep that in mind. Now, if a player you really like and a landing spot that you love is there, then you got to do it. But I just think off the top of my head, this took a couple years in a row now. Tyrone Tracy in the third round, and then you had Puka in the third round. Like there's a lot of options later on of guys that if you pay attention to landing spots that you can capitalize on. So here, I now Jerry Judy would interest me a little bit, especially if I don't feel good about what I've these picks that I have. Like, go ahead and give me the proven commodity. Like I really like that in the mid second if I can get it.
Yeah, I think this is where that proven commodity kind of comes into play. Sure, he doesn't have Jameis Winston there anymore, um, but Judy looked good at the end of last year. That trade from the
Yeah.
Broncos to the Browns. I mean, it looked like something changed there. So that might be somebody worth taking a shot on if you're not in love with the prospect that falls. And our last little grouping here is just I've lumped the entire second half of the second round together just because these are really landing spot dependent picks. You
Mhm.
get different names in there. You get Devin Neals and RJ Harvey's and Harold Fannin Jr. Like you're going to get all these names thrown out there. We just have to see where they land. You're probably looking at two early to mid thirds if you're trying to move up. Um, and I really like the values here. James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco, those guys are people that you can actually go get, according to KTC, for this price point. And I'll be honest with you, I know James Conner may seem to be like ancient at this point, but he still produces. I mean, you had him on a dynasty team this year. How well did he fare for you?
Well, he was fantastic, and I think sometimes, and I'll be the first to admit, in Dynasty, I feel like we're always trying to get younger. Sometimes you can get caught up in trying to get younger all the time. When the one thing you really need to do is try to win your league that year. I mean, that's why you're ultimately playing the game. So if you have a contender and you can get James Conner for the 210, then you need to jump all over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, this is all landing spot dependent. If these guys all land in favorable landing spots, take your shot at them if you would like. But we like the proven commodities here, especially whenever we're unsure about landing spots. But that wraps up the video. Let us know in the comments, down below if you have any uh, questions or you think maybe our values are a little off, or send any trades that you may have. We'll try to answer all the questions that we may have, or you may have actually in the comments. So without further ado, we're going to sign off from this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all those things, especially to the FF Faceoff channel. And we'll see you in the next one.